Today you get the moodier, more mysterious me. Welcome back to the Skill Builders Guild. Thanks again for watching. It's a first look, run, and review of the new FMS FCX18. And here it is right here. This is a Land Cruiser, a Toyota licensed Land Cruiser 80 series that you're seeing in front of us. It is actually licensed. And this is on the new FCX18 platform. And there are some major differences over the last LC80 that we saw come out from FMS. However, cosmetically, it is very similar, if not exactly the same. I don't have the original, whatever scale that other one was that came out, but it looked really similar to this in every single way, except for a few changes. And most of those changes are underneath, and that's where we're going to see a lot of improvements from FMS. This is a pretty decent 18th scale model, and I've got a lot of information coming at you, so definitely stay tuned. Now, of course, the biggest change is this is an 18th scale chassis underneath, and it is a significant difference from the last version that had this body. The main differences, of course, being that, well, this is improved in every single way I could think of. A larger motor, a 2-speed transmission, portal axles, full light kit, lower metal links, oil-filled shocks, and incredibly improved performance. This is a much more realistic, accurate truck. Yes, this has really made a real huge improvement in both the quality of the ride, quality of the suspension, and the quality of the components. Having a 2-speed in a truck this small is probably not my first recommendation, but it does make for easier times on the trails. That higher speed is significantly higher, so you will get a lot more wheel speed, and it is a much more comfortable pace to walk with than trying to crawl with it in a low crawl speed. That said, the low speed transmission option is very low and does a great job of getting torque to the axles, and you're actually adding a significant amount of reduction because this does have portal axles. It is using FMS's standard micro or mini controller. I actually do really like this controller, mostly because you can do everything one-handed, and all of the controls are very easy to manipulate using these dip switches and analog controls. The dip switches allow for forward, reverse, brake, or my preferred motion, forward reverse, where reverse is instant. So the moment you hit reverse throttle, it goes into reverse. You also have the ability to adjust for LiPo or nickel metal hydride. This does come with a LiPo battery, a significantly larger LiPo battery. I guess one of my only major complaints is that it is a little difficult to get under the hood. There's not much of a lip there. There is a rubber sort of gasket here that holds your battery in place, and you get a nice big, this is a big 2S LiPo. It's a 900 milliamp hour battery. So you're going to get a significant amount of runtime out of that battery, and that's one of the things that I'm going to be testing later in this video. There is also a drag brake selection. You can go between 0, 50, 75, and 100% drag brake, which is phenomenal. It's nice to have a drag brake in a truck this small. I don't know how necessary it is, but it is a definitely nice thing to have. There is a full light kit. Let's get the battery reinstalled, and I'll turn on the lights and you can see how that all functions. And we'll turn on the truck, and there you go. Great, okay. Like all FMS trucks before it seems, it does have 4 modes for the lights. There is light bar and low beam, high beam, caution mode, and off. Like every light kit before, there are turn signals, and I really wish that FMS would just eliminate this as a function. Nobody needs turn signals on a rock crawler. Assuming you're off-road, you're not signaling your turns. So that would be something I'd love to see them do away with. There is a way to turn them off, but you lose all light function in that mode. So, but reverse still works for some reason. It does have reverse lights, but they are red, not white. That's fine. It is a nice to have for sure, and it's nice to have a light kit at this price point. As you can see, there is a nice low crawl, but it does still let's still get going at a pretty decent pace. Like I said, this is a 2-speed transmission, so you use the 3rd channel to switch all the way into 2nd gear. And this gets gets a little fast. But it does squeal the tires, so that's kind of cool. I think I'm going to spend most of my time in 1st gear. It's just so much easier to control, and honestly, 2 speeds are something that I don't really think are absolutely necessary, especially at this scale. Like I said though, if you do want to walk with this on a longer trail, it might be nice to have that 2-speed. The FCX18 with the Land Cruiser body comes in 3 different colorways. This Safari Yellow here, which I actually think looks probably the best. I like the blacked out fenders. I think that's a really nice look for it. There is also a silver and a blue and silver. The blue and silver is probably my 2nd favorite. It comes with these tires here. I feel like there's a bit of foam in there, a very minor foam. These are modeled to look like a Wrangler MTR tire, and they have been mounted properly on both sides, so that's cool to see. These are probably a carryover from a lot of other models. It is a beadlock wheel, so you would have the ability to change the rubber without having to toss the whole thing in the oven to get them removed. The servo on axle is pretty strong. It's not super strong, but there is a nice amount of steering throw. I had to go in and adjust the actual dual rate to make sure I was getting full throw. There's not an easy way to remove the body from the frame. You will have to use a screwdriver to remove the body in case you need to get at that transmission to do any sort of regular maintenance, but it doesn't really appear as if there's a quick release or a good way to do that, so you will have to do some fiddling to get that off. From what I can glean from the box, there are a lot of metal upgrades for the diffs and gearing and such, so my guess is that most of the gears are going to be plastic on the inside of these differentials. Not a big deal though. These I think have been used on the FMS Max Smasher, and that was known to be very, very robust and quite capable as a monster truck, so I can only imagine they'll hold up quite well as a crawler. I would imagine that those drive shafts are going to be a failure point in the future. It would be nice to see a metal upgrade for those as well. The upper links are plastic. It is sort of a 3-link style setup. I love the oil shocks. I think that is huge, and they actually do feel quite plush. There is a nice amount of suspension travel, but it's really nicely sort of minimized by that oil. I'd love to see that at this price point. It's really nice. Nice steel ladder frame chassis. You can see they've actually printed FMS FCX18 on the frame rails, which is kind of a nice little touch. You can tell the attention to detail is getting a lot better at FMS than it already was. I mean, the hard bodies that they do are really spectacular, and this one's no different. It does really look good. There are a few things detail-wise that they've missed. This whole area back here, that's usually flat black. Around the window surround there, but they did get the heated sort of lines in the rear window, which is cool. The spare tire in the back, the ladder, emblems, license plate, nice big beefy bumpers. I love this sort of ARB inspired front bumper. I think that looks really cool. And the 80 series is one of my favorite Land Cruisers, so it's nice to have one in a capable form on a really nice, good-looking chassis. Now, for the challenge of this video, I'm going to run it, of course, outside, but I wanted to see what sort of capability you could get out of it and what kind of longevity you could expect from this truck. So, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a little course outside, and then we're just going to kind of set it and forget it. What I'm hoping to do is create a tether for this truck and just have it do loops over and over and over again. I'm going to set up an Arduino counter so we can actually have a light beam that every time this truck crosses through the beam, it counts that number of laps. And we'll get a sort of an accurate representation of how many laps or how much of distance you can expect to travel with the one battery in its fully charged state. I think this is a nice new product from FMS that I think is going to do very well. If you are interested in picking one up, I'll put links down below to where you can get one. They will be affiliate links, which always helps me help you help the channel. So if you're interested in that, links will be down below. Which one's your favorite? Put a comment down below. You know I love reading through your feedback, and I try to answer as many of them as I can. And of course, if you're enjoying this video, you can hit the like button. And if you're not enjoying it, you can hit the dislike button. For the sake of sharing what the chassis would look like without the body on it, I did remove the body. It's not exactly simple, but it's not exactly difficult either. It's really just 4 screws. Actually 5 if you count the one you have to back off in order to get at the other 4th screw. But honestly, 5 minutes to get the body off, which of course when you're on the trail isn't going to be the best thing in the whole world, but this is more just to give you an idea of what things look like underneath the body. And here you can see it's a very simple layout with a large 180 size 50-turn brushed motor. You got your 2-speed transmission right over here. That is the servo for shifting into 2nd or 1st gear. And then you've got your ESC receiver combo with LED inputs right there. And then your battery right up front to keep all that weight over the front axle. Not a lot going on in the rear, as you can see. But nice, reasonable layout, very similar to a lot of other trucks on the market. They did manage to get a nice 2-speed transmission into a fairly compact little spot, so that actually works out pretty well. And not a lot of things get hung up on underneath either, so pretty decent layout, pretty decent construction as well. I should note, this does show a waterproof level of PPX4, which I'm going to have to Google. I have no idea how that rating pans out, so let's get out my phone. PPX4 doesn't come up, but IPX4 does, and that's basically splash-proof electronics. So I would not submerge this in any way, shape, or form if you want it to continue working. There is no interior included in the FCX18 and no way to put one in as far as I can tell. It would have to be very, very shallow in order for that to work. All the windows are quite heavily tinted, so I'm not even sure how much you would see. It also does not have any sort of inner fender. There's not a lot of room up front for an inner fender. It could be done, I presume. You could probably just 3D print something. You maybe even do a running board to help hide some of that empty space there, which would help for sure. It'd be nice to see something like that included on the next iteration, and I would also love to see a non-portal axled version, just to see how that might compare. Let's get it outside. Okay, here we go. This is not in any way meant to disrespect RC Test Flight and the excellent work that they do. But this is my very rudimentary setup here. I've got a Arduino box right here with a little tiny house that has an infrared sensor built into it. And the program that I'm using, I'm not sure if you can see that on here. It doesn't look like it. It's very easy to see. But it's got revolutions, and what this thing does basically is every time the truck goes by that house, it counts a revolution. And the truck will be driving around in a circle. You can see that it's been tethered. I printed out this little anchor device, and there's a little bearing inside there, and the rope that attaches to the truck. I made a little tab, all 3D printed on the Bamboo Labs X1 carbon. And what we're going to do is basically measure the size of the circle that it does through my very small backyard course here, and then get the number of revolutions, and we'll be able to tell exactly how far the truck has traveled on one battery, which is exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm really hoping this all works out. This whole Arduino box, you're like, how is this being powered? It's powered by this little USB battery brick here. So supplies 5 volts and does all the right things, and hopefully will last longer than the truck. Oh yeah, speaking of, you'll notice that on this side of the FCX18, I've got this flat black sticker. And I put this on here because the beam needs reflection in order for it to work, the infrared beam. So it's flat black all along the side, and then one big shiny reflective area, and that's what the counter is counting every time the truck goes by. And yeah, that's about it. So we're going to start this up. I'm just going to keep it in low range gearing, put an elastic band around it, and I've already turned the steering trim to the left, so it's basically doing one big loop, and keeps nice tension on the winch line. That's a Reef's winch line, by the way. And yeah, we're gonna see how long this goes for. So wish me luck. Okay, so this is proving to not be as accurate or as reliable as I'd like. It says it's done 163 revolutions, but I highly doubt that. I mean, it's possible. It's not very likely, though. I think it's not always. See there, it didn't break the beam that time. This thing is so finicky, I'm not going to lie. At least I've got a time lapse going, so I'll be able to at least count the laps manually. But yeah, I'd love to get this working a little bit better. It is kind of cool though, because it is carving a very nice circle in my backyard. See, it didn't break the beam that time either. $687 revolutions. I don't think that's at all possible. I mean, it might be, but I doubt it. It's definitely starting to slow down, though. You can tell that it doesn't have quite the oomph that it had before. The time lapse has been going the whole time, so I'm going to use that as a backup to count the revolutions, and we'll measure the radius here in a little bit as soon as it stops. And then we'll be able to give a good, accurate representation of how much distance it could travel on a single charge. This is pretty fun, I gotta say. I know that this is not the first time this has been done, and it's certainly been done far more accurately by others, but I'm having a real fun time doing this. It's great because I can just sort of leave it. It can just drive around in circles, happily just moving around, moving dirt. But somehow, oh, I see what's happening. Oh dear, that's not good. Okay, all right. I can see that being a problem. This branch here was starting to loop around the actual tow rope. Yeah, it looks like we're okay now. But I wonder how long it was doing that for. Oops. Anyway, everything's fine now, although I do think it's three-wheel drive. They have completely shattered the portal axle gears on the driver's rear. But we're running again. Now I'm honestly a little bit shocked. Like, this thing just keeps going. And granted, it is in the low gear, so it's not taxing. But this is a pretty significant distance that I think it's covered. Now, of course, the counter is way wrong. 2,434 revolutions. There's no way that's correct. But man, it just won't stop. And there we go. Finally, it's done. Only took forever. Well, okay. Yeah, that's definitely a lipo cutoff. That's what that means. So let's investigate, take it down to the bench, and start doing some math.
because we need to calculate how far this thing went. According to the readometer, 3,861 revolutions, which I don't think is accurate. Not even a little bit. But we're going to do some math, and we're going to check the time lapse, count all of these laps manually, and get an accurate number in terms of the distance traveled on one 900 milliamp hour battery. Pretty cool. All right, let's see how we did.
All right, so there we go. That is that's the test, and it performed pretty well, I have to say. Low gear, about 3+ hours of total runtime on one 900 milliamp hour 2S LiPo pack. Pretty impressive. And really, the only problem, and I have to say this was user error, because the tether, which actually, this tether worked pretty darn well, pretty flawlessly, except of course when it got wrapped around that root. And it wrapped around so badly that you can turn this wheel and nothing else turns. So I'd say that's definitely a bit of a problem, but it didn't affect it. It just kept going. Pretty incredible. I'm really quite impressed with the longevity, and there's nothing else to report. Everything else is completely fine. That was not much of endurance test. That was not the point of this. This was to see how far it would go on a single LiPo battery. Essentially, what you have to do is use some math. What we have to do is figure out the radius of the circle, and the radius of the circle that this truck was driving was 31 inches, which is about 0.79 meters. To find the circumference of a circle, it's pi r squared. So you basically take the radius, square it, and multiply that by pi, and that gives you an answer of 4.95 meters. That's the distance that it traveled in a circle, 4.95 meters per revolution. Now we're going to go count up the revolutions that it did, because unfortunately my little infrared Arduino house here kind of failed spectacularly. I blame it on the accuracy of the infrared meter, and this thing is probably quite accurate with small things that just pass in front of it once. It can count things like that quite easily, but for whatever reason, maybe it was height in relation to the truck, or the fact that the truck is not a solid object all the time, it didn't do a great job of counting all of the revolutions. It counted way more than there were, 3,000 something. So I don't think it did that many. We're going to have to count manually how many it did, and then we'll find out how far it went. And we're going to put that up on the screen here now. Regardless, super fun test, very, very informative. It gives you an idea of the endurance of the battery and how far you could go on one charge, which is spectacular. As for long-term dependability, that's something that remains to be seen, but I am pretty impressed with the FCX18. It's a nice little model, and FMS did a good job. If you're interested, again, I'll put links down below where you can order one for yourself. And thanks so much to FMS for sending this my way so I could do this review and challenge. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you again soon.